I'm Emma Jane Vere and you're watching Television Tonga News. Making headlines. His Royal Highness Crown Prince Tupotoa Ulukalala will open a new dormitory for His Majesty's Naval Base at Masefield tomorrow. The Public Enterprise Ministry collects close to 2 million ba'anga in dividends from 6 government businesses. And development groups in the Western District have access to a grant aid from Australia and New Zealand. These and more stories, including news from the Pacific, sports, world and the weather forecast later on in this bulletin. Let's take a look at the news in detail. His Royal Highness Crown Prince Tupotoa Ulukalala will officially open a new building at His Majesty's Naval Base, Masefield, tomorrow afternoon. Is Sinilatu with more on that story.
The new building for His Majesty's Naval Base at Masefield is funded by the Australian government to the tune of 850,000 ba'anga. Around 70% of the cost for the construction was spent in the kingdom in order to help boost the local economy. A special ceremony is expected to be held to mark the new dormitory. This new building is a dormitory which will be officially opened tomorrow evening, or tomorrow afternoon rather. The new building will be used for male and female officers. There will be 3 rooms which will house up to 12 male officers, and another will be used by the female officers which will house up to 12 or 10 of them rather. For Television Tonga News, I'm Sinilatu.
The patron of the Tonga National Leadership Development Forum, Her Royal Highness Princess Latu Fuipeka Tukuaho, will attend a 2-day event in Hapai to mark a leadership program. Here's Sinilatu again with that report.
The chairperson of the Tonga National Leadership Development Forum Board, Drew Havea, says Her Royal Highness the Princess Latu Fuipeka Tukuaho will arrive on the island of Hapai with a fellow member of the board, Lord Tuiafitu. A series of activities will be held on the 16th and 17th to mark leadership on the island. Mr. Havea says the Hawaii Governor, Lord Tuihangana, has held discussions with local leaders on the issue. The Hawaii Governor also calls on his people to take the lead in practicing good leadership. For Television Tonga News, I'm Sinilatu.
The Ministry of Public Enterprises has collected almost 2 million ba'anga in dividends from 9 of its government businesses. This morning, the Friendly Islands Shipping Agency, or FISA, paid its first ever dividend of more than 100,000 ba'anga for the 2012-2013 financial year since becoming a member last year. Kalisto Yanoko has the details.
Honourable Minister of Public Enterprises Fe'ao Vakata accepted a cheque of more than 100,000 ba'anga dividend from the chairman of the board of Friendly Island Shipping Agency, Tapu Panuve. The Public Enterprise Minister praised the high standard performance carried out by the agency to the public. The government initially allocated 400,000 ba'anga to the Friendly Island Shipping Agency to begin operation with. Today, the company has paid back 100,000 and 20,000 ba'anga in dividends. This is 30% more of the 400,000 ba'anga given to them to start up the company. We were expecting about 10% of the money we gave in the beginning, but they exceeded the amount and paid back 30% more to government. The board of Friendly Island Shipping Agency, Tapu Panuve, told TV Tonga News they experience a lot of improvement in the services they provide to the public over the year. A cabinet decision for Friendly Island Shipping Agency was to meet safety regulation and operate according to the marine regulation, which we have done. Furthermore, the agency has set about 1.8 million ba'anga to hire another vessels to replace the MV Otuanga offer when it is no longer fit to sail. There are a total of 16 government businesses under the Ministry of Public Enterprises. For Television Tonga News, I'm Kalisi Tunuku.
Many women's development groups in the Western District will benefit from a grant aid from the Australian and New Zealand governments. This was revealed during a training today on how to access such grants. Tinilatu tells you more.
A member of the Tonga National Leadership Development Forum, Maninta Sileja, says one of the objectives to boost good leadership is to create an environment that teaches and encourages good leadership and governance. Corruption can be discouraged, even stopped altogether, if we create an environment where the leaders are encouraged to think positive, that it can be achieved and not dwell on the impossible or negative thoughts. I believe this will help minimize the risk of them falling victim to corruption. In the same program, the Central District Officer Viliami Siswa calls on people in his district to live up to the traditional Tonga standards, which he believes will help combat corruption. The 4 gold threads, which Tongans traditionally live by, are respect, maintaining relationships, humility, and commitment. Once a person adopts all of that into his or her life, it will make it easy to avoid corruption. Most importantly, Mr. Siswa says, living according to God's will is the most effective weapon against corruption in the kingdom. For Television Tonga News, I'm Sinilato.
Majesty's Armed Forces held a farewell parade. Take 2. His Majesty's Armed Forces held a farewell parade at Daliai Military Camp yesterday to mark the retirement of 2 of its long-serving defence personnel. Major Sausi Tui Halafatai Tuita and Lieutenant Colonel Kuli Whakalolo have served with His Majesty's Armed Forces for more than 35 years. Kalis Tui Onuku has more on that story.
Guest of honour at His Majesty Armed Forces Farewell Parade was the Honourable Prime Minister Lord Tuivaka-No. Also at the event was the Brigadier Tauaika Uta'atu and many more guests. In a speech from Lieutenant Colonel Kuli Whakalolo, he thanked the Prime Minister for attending the event and also thanked his fellow colleagues. I would like to thank my fellow colleague for your loyalty and service. I encourage you to use every opportunity wisely, learn from your experience, and strive to improve. In a speech from Brigadier Uta'atu, he praised the retirees for their long service to His Majesty Armed Forces and the Kingdom. On behalf of the board and His Majesty Armed Forces, we extend our gratitude and thanks to you both for your loyal service and good leadership in all the duties you carried out. We wish you well in all your endeavors. Kuli Whakalolo was recruited to His Majesty Armed Forces in September 4, 1977. He was the first Tonga Cadet officer to study at Portsea College in Melbourne, Australia from 1978 to 1979. He also took part in an American exchange program in Hawaii and other courses in New Zealand. During his years of service, he reached a level where he led the training department and also became an escort to Prince Tuipelehake at the time in 1983. Meanwhile, Major Sausi Tui Halafatai Tuita was recruited to the service in June 1, 1976. He also took part in various courses overseas and also served in China as a liaison officer in 2004. During his service, he was presented with various awards by the late King Tau Ahau Tupou IV. Major Tuita is married to Emeline Tuita. They have 9 children and grandchildren. Lieutenant Colonel Whakalolo is married to Taufa and they have 7 children and grandchildren. For Radio and Television Tonga News, I'm Kalisi Tuionuku.
Wava'u's week-long event to promote tourism on the island began today. Television Tonga News correspondent on the island, Lutoviko Tapueluelu, says despite the ongoing rain this morning, the program continued with a town inspection of all villages on the island. The inspection began with the villages of Talihau, Utungake, Utule and Pangaimotu before moving on to the Neafu district. The inspection continues tomorrow to the smaller islands, in which 7 islands have registered to take part, and it will end this Saturday with villages in the rural areas. Other activities lined up for the week include the performance of traditional dances and songs and the display of locally made products, which will begin on Monday. Lutoviko reports that there are many tourists visiting the island during this period, including officers from the Ministry of Commerce, Tourism and Labour, who are organising the event. They are working alongside fellow tourism colleagues from Vava'o, Lolina Tonga and Bruno Toke. The Tonga Girl Guides marked International Day of the Girls in the Kingdom by advocating against violence of women and children. Fatai Whainga'a tells you more.
The international theme to mark International Day of the Girls focuses on global issues such as poverty, which is deemed as another factor contributing to violence against women and children. Speaking to Television Tonga News, the head of the Tonga Girl Guides Association, Halai Valpalu, says that it is crucial for parents to open doors of communication with their daughters and young girls in order to help them deal with peer pressure and other challenges they face.
Young
We are encouraging good manners, respect and confidence so each girl can share their thoughts, seek help if needed and informed decisions. Parents also need to be more open and encourage conversations with the girls and listen to them when they want to share with parents. The Tonga Girl Guides Association also represent Tonga in sending their condolences to South Africa for the death of its former president, Nelson Mandela. For Television Tonga News, I'm Fatai Whainga'a.
That's the local news. Pacific is next.